fingers and tendrils evolving out of this flesh, constant growing monster baby. This is a really bizarre, strange, and disturbing scene. It's from a movie called Akira. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend not watching my video because this is the climax of the movie. But if you want to watch it, that'll help me out. This is one of my favorite animated films. It's a flawed masterpiece. It's definitely has serious problems as a movie itself because it's a condensed version of a larger story, a manga that spans over 2,000 pages. So what we get is a sort of extremely fast-paced, at times incomprehensible fever dream, this truncated version of the bigger story. In a way, though, it works in its favor because animation is just pure energy, images played in sequence for your eyes to absorb. This movie is all about nightmare energy of this world, Neo-Tokyo, that was created after World War III. And World War III was caused by this psychic experiment the governments were doing on these children to unlock humans' potential for like the next stage in our advancement. So in a way, this whole movie is an allegory for technology gone amok. If the power of a god was given to a human, that would be much like if the power of a human was given to an amoeba. All amoebas do is absorb and eat everything in their path. This is the visual representation of Tetsuo basically getting the power of a god and becoming that amoeba. His body is absorbing everything around it and morphing, and it's pretty gross and disturbing, but it's also really awesome. So right before this scene, they've been fighting for a while, Kaneda and Tetsuo. Tetsuo just took on a whole army of these laser guns, and he was destroying tanks, and then he destroyed this satellite that was shooting down laser beams at him. Yet somehow he's having trouble defeating his one friend with this one laser beam, which leads me to believe that this whole time, Tetsuo actually didn't want to kill Kaneda. He's just been wanting to prove to Kaneda that he's no longer the runt of the group. He's no longer a loser. Now he has these psychic powers, and he's basically wanting Kaneda's approval. Tetsuo has already killed a lot of their friends and other innocent people, so Kaneda's trying to get rid of him. But look at this laser blast. It's cool to go through things frame by frame because you can see how they do certain things, like this blast, all these different shapes to convey this energy. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frames. And then it hits Tetsuo's arm in the exact same place we've been looking. See, when you have scenes, when you have shots that are so fast paced, when they only last 8 frames or so, then you have to make sure that the very next shot is going to be where the audience's eye is looking. So the focal point of this scene, this laser blast, your eyes are already up here where he raises his arm and then he gets hit in the exact same place your eyes were looking. So this is just really good film editing. Stuff you take for granted until you actually analyze it frame by frame. Oh, that's such a good moment. It's right here is where Kaneda goes from, he has a clear shot, he can obviously kill him, but when he sees Tetsuo suffering, he has that moment of human empathy again, where that's his childhood friend. And I like just this trail of smoke that comes out of his leg. See right here, where he pushes his leg out, the trail of smoke follows the path of action, just rises up. This is basically all we see of Akira in the whole movie, besides a flashback scene. The whole movie, they're all just talk about Akira, but the audience is just as confused as the main characters who've never seen him. They don't know what he is. Is he real? Is he just like this monster? And then when we finally find out about him, all that's left is these little containers that contain his membranes and nerves and cells that for future generations to experiment on. So it makes it more like both mystical and I guess rooted in some kind of science. But here's the part where Tetsuo's body can no longer contain his energy. And I watched this scene so many times when I first saw it. I was 20. I started animating when I was 19. So it was right when I was just getting into this animation thing. And I'd never seen something like this done in animation before. This crazy morphing, fluid type of surreal movements. It is really pleasant to look at, even though the subject matter is kind of, you'll see. Saying help me. Kaneda's reaction is probably what the audience is. Yeah, no comment on this. But look at, I love these little just blurring, like there's all these nice little touches to add depth to really show the scale of this monster. So he's in the background all blurred. These little fingers and tendrils evolving out of this flesh, constant growing monster baby. All these tubes and pipes. The Olympic Stadium is merging with them. It's significant that all this is happening at this Olympic Stadium that they were building over the site of the original Akira blast that started World War III. So they're building this new Olympic Stadium. Olympics sports, it's like pushing the human form to its absolute limits. All this experimentation on the children to create psychics or unlock these latent psychic abilities in humans. We're now seeing this desire for absolute power run amok in the form of Tetsuo, who's pushing beyond all human potential, and it's happening in this Olympic Stadium. So it's just a really nice touch, because normally Olympic performers are very fit and gods and goddesses of the human form, but Tetsuo's turned into this monster. Oof. I love these colors they chose to use for the flesh. So much of this movie happens in the night, but it's a very colorful movie. Pulsating organs. I won't show Corey's death. Yeah, Tetsuo just said Corey's dying, but she already died. It's like some morphing pasta. The Espers are probably the most innocent characters in this film, whereas most of the characters are neither heroes nor villains. They're just thrown into this incomprehensible world, and they're just trying to survive. But I really like this shot. I want a poster of this on my wall. These colors are awesome. The Colonel, originally I thought he was going to be like a bad guy, because he's basically the antagonist to Kaneda and Tetsuo, but he's also the only one that truly understands the danger of awakening Akira and the powers, and he is the only one that wants to save Neo Tokyo. So in a way, he's like tries more than any other character to actually create a good outcome for this universe. But I love just these little veins. There's like these mechanical circuit board and pipes that are coming out of this. It's very cyberpunk horror elements. I don't like horror films, but this is just so cool and surreal. I like all the little fingers coming out. That eyeball. See, he wants to save them. Standing up to that monster with just a little gun. That's really cool. This is the scientist who took things too far. Oof. Love that mouth. The colored lines on the espers is a nice touch too. Honestly, I think my favorite sequence in that movie is the opening bike sequence, the first 15 minutes or so. From a technical perspective, that's the most impressive sequence in the movie, because there's all these layers of parallax scrolling and these extremely detailed buildings and fully animated perspective of the roads, and the motorcycles, just the models of the motorcycles are so cool. And the clown gang, I really just love the artistry, the design work, the colors, the backgrounds in this movie. It's just something you just have to experience, and a lot of the story is told through the background information. Dialogue is not the best. For that reason, I would almost recommend watching the subtitled version, because the voice acting is better in that. With the subtitles, there's just so much visual information you're going to lose trying to read the subtitles. But just from a purely visual and musical standpoint, it's just this nightmare experience you have to absorb. The music, the soundtrack, like it's like sounds like a jungle, but you're in this futuristic city, and they merge organic, real life Japanese instruments with electronic instruments, and a lot of the music is very vocal based. It's just chanting and heavy breathing. There's one song where it sounds like a really chubby guy has asthma, and he's just like out of breath, and it's the feeling that you would have in this city of like basically feeling you're suffocating under these tall, oppressive, huge skyscrapers, and just on the surface of the city is just the riffraff of this type of world where like no one really has any control. They basically have no purpose, they have no meaning for life. They're very nihilistic, so they just fill their nights with racing around, just living for short thrills, until one of their members, Tetsuo, collides with one of these espers that were tested on with the government and gets his psychic powers awakened. It just so happens that the psychic powers awakened in this 15-year-old with an inferiority complex, who then lashes out against the city that's basically oppressed him his whole life. There's all these different layers to the film that aren't explicitly told to you in the dialogue, but there's all the subtext that you have to watch it a few times. But the manga, like I said, is much longer. It goes into way more detail. There's all these characters who just make a cameo in here or never show up. Lady Miyoko, for instance, is just a total, like almost like a badass in the manga. She's super wise. She understands the Akira situation better than anyone else, and because she herself is an esper, but in here she's just a religious cult leader. She does serve like a good function in that she shows what happens with the tribalism or cult type system gets pushed so far, and then she has all these followers that just follow her to their death on this bridge because they think Tetsuo is Akira. When they're all on the bridge with Tetsuo, they're fighting against the tanks. Tetsuo basically just lets his followers die like they're worthless because he doesn't actually care about them. So then the bridge collapses and everyone's falling to their doom. But Lady Miyoko, the cult leader, is telling everyone to purify themselves in the flames and not to be afraid of death. And then when she starts to fall off the bridge, she screams for her life for her followers to save her. I'm more excited about this film than I probably sound. I don't know if I emote my emotions through my voice, but I could go into depth on many more scenes. Let me know what you think about this, if you'd like me to try to analyze more animations, or if there's any scenes from certain movies you'd like me to talk about. But thank you for watching. If you want to see more stuff, you can subscribe. Actually working on more animation tutorials, and if you want to keep up to date on more animation related stuff, all the links for that will be down somewhere in the description. But I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.